Good morning, Spiritual Life Center. Welcome to the SLC Sunday experience with the choir, and happy St. Patrick's Day. You are welcome here.
I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm meant to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here.
Turn around and wave hello to everybody at home.
I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. 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 Our souls are welcome here. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome
Bang! Okay. Souls are welcome here. We got a little echo going on. Very interesting. Okay.
So we greet you this morning in the name of all that is good, all that is holy, and all that is sacred, and in the warm and loving energy of this mission-centric ministry, Spiritual Life Center. If you're with us for the very first time this morning, we especially want to welcome you because we know that you are not here by accident, that you and all of us and those of us who are live streaming with us are all here by divine appointment. And we're so glad that you kept your appointment with us today. And we'd also appreciate it if you keep your appointment with that thing in your pocket that goes ringy-dingy and silence your electronic devices.
Yes, so we can connect with that presence unencumbered. You know, each week we've been stating what the basic principles are for this movement we call Unity and New Thought. And I've been reciting them, but I thought today we'd do something a little different, that we'll just recite them together. So if you can read the overhead, why don't we go ahead and read it? I'm gonna count down to 1, 3, a 2, a 1. God is absolute good and everywhere present. People are inherently good. Thoughts create our experiences. Prayer and meditation is how we connect with God. And we must take action. And that sums it up. Almost everything we say somehow comes out of those 5 principles. So if everybody asks you, what do we teach? You can recite that back to them. All right. And also, you know, this week we're continuing on acknowledging the season for nonviolence. And I believe that in light of the tragic loss of the members of the mosque in New Zealand, it's appropriate that we incorporate those principles for ourselves and radiate that energy out to a world that so desperately is calling out for it. And so every week we do have a reading from the principles that Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King taught. And today's reading is going to be done by Pat Harvey. So I invite Pat to come forward to share today's Season for Nonviolence reading.
All right, thank you. And it's a great privilege to be able to be here with you today and be a part of this community. Our statement is, today I make a personal practice of nonviolence. What I say and do expresses what is in my thoughts, not as I wish they were, but how they really are. This day I commit to practice nonviolence in my thoughts, words, and actions. Throughout the day, I notice that I am self-critical or that I judge others harshly. I notice that I abuse my body temple. I notice that no matter how I try, I still participate in abusing Mother Earth. The opportunity to make a personal practice of nonviolence shows up in my thoughts, actions, and words. However, I must first begin with my thoughts because they have the greatest impact on my words and actions. And my words and actions have the greatest impact on the world. Today, I make a personal practice of nonviolence. And this really came to fruition for me when I first started coming here. I had a lot of resentment and frustration with 2 episodes of my life that had happened prior to coming here. A ending of a 32-year marriage and having to retire earlier than I'd planned because of a medical diagnosis. So this whole philosophy of new thought and metaphysics and how important it is that we keep our thoughts of, we're not going to do it 100% of the time, but refocusing and re-emphasizing what the positive is in a situation, or and the importance of getting that out and letting things go. So I just leave with you. This is a special heart for me. I have 3 siblings, and 2 of them are very fundamental Christians, and my oldest sister and I are more of this way of thinking. And we could never discuss spirituality or religion because it always ended up in an argument in the past. But we had a visit together in Vermont where they lived, and I bought this heart there, and we had the most beautiful discussion of spirituality, and we've just been able to be much more open with each other ever since. So let's live our lives with love, compassion, and respect.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Pat, for that wonderful message.
This Wednesday, our WOW program is called, it's a microclass, and we've called it There's a B-Sides Too. And Paul Sanchez, who is a teacher, is going to do the microclass for us, and he will be bringing in some music and playing it for us, and then allowing us to take time to find the divine in it, because this is popular music. And when Paul and I were talking about it, it's like, you have this day that's not going as well as you would like, but you might walk into a grocery store or someplace else, and there's music playing. And it's not sacred music, but it's music, and something in that speaks to you, and you find that little spark of the divine in it. So join us. It's going to be a really interesting evening. The soup is at 6 and the service is at 7.
And you can also join us for our spring cleaning here at Spiritual Life Center. It's going to take place Saturday, March the 30th, between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. And we're going to make our spiritual home shine like never before. And it will be washing walls to prepare for painting, and we plan to use non-toxic cleaners, trying to stay in alignment with the high vibration. And if you happen to have a step ladder and gloves, bring them along, because we'll be able to use them. And you can sign up in the courtyard near the cashier's table, and we're going to have coffee and snacks to get you through that morning. So if you're available, want to rub a little elbow grease to shine up the place, we invite you to be part here on Saturday, March the 30th, between 9 and 2, and come at any time that works for you.
Okay. And we have an announcement from our Board of Trustees. Martha Mills.
Just another quick reminder that we are accepting applications for being members of our SLC board. We have at least one full-time 3-year commitment and 2 one-year alternate commitments. In terms of our unity teachings, taking and being in action is very important in our SLC community. You've got JG here in the choir, as well as Deborah. Pat is our volunteer coordinator. So we are engaged as board members, and that is part of the prerequisite of being a board member. If you have any questions, we are holding a get to know the board coffee and croissants next Sunday between services from 10 to 10:45 over in the kitchen. Come with your questions. The applications are available online, as well as we have printed copies, and I'll be at a table after the session. And I wanted to leave you with this Irish blessing. May there always be work for your hands to do. May your purse always hold a coin or 2. May the sun always shine on your window pane. May a rainbow be certain to follow each rain. May the hand of a friend always be near you. May God fill your heart with gladness to cheer you. Hope to see you at the table or as a board member. Take care.
Thank you. Just a reminder that I'm facilitating a class entitled Truth Principles for Modern Living that's going to take place starting April the 4th. I shared earlier that it's based upon a classic text entitled Lessons in Truth. And when I was going through my own dark night of the soul and seeking to transition to a higher way of being, that was one of the first books I read, and it has all the principles in there, but we're going to update it with some of the modern teachers, such as Braden, I can't remember his first name, but Greg Braden, I should know, Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, a few others, to amplify some of those teachings, so I invite you to be part of that, and we should have a good time.
Yes, I was just looking for the date. I tried to say this was going to be in February, so I was making sure. Friday, April 5th, we're going to have an update from Gary Simmons, who is our coach, as we walk through this mission-centric shift. And we are going to be having this thing on Friday night. You can ask questions, you can give feedback, and we would love to know that you're going to attend. So register for this free gathering online or in the courtyard, and we only want you to do that so we know how many people to set up for.
And we want to acknowledge a few groups of people this morning, our ambassadors, our prayer chaplains, as well as any Board of Trustee members who are here this morning. And the ambassadors are here to answer questions that you may have about Spiritual Life Center, point you in the right direction, tell you ways that you can get engaged with our community. And they're wearing the rainbow ribbons, and they're wonderful greeters to have you be part of our community. I also want to acknowledge our prayer chaplains who are wearing the white stoles. And they're doing the very important work of holding the prayer consciousness for our community as a whole, but also will pray with you individually. If you're going through a challenge, they'll help you see the truth. If you're going through some joy, they'll help you maintain it to an even higher level. So we thank them for their service to Spiritual Life Center. And then finally, our Board of Trustees, any that are here this morning, they're here to also answer questions. They do the very important work of really setting the direction and purpose of Spiritual Life Center as far as who we are, what we're here to be, and keep us on track to make sure that we have planning to move us forward from where we are to where Spirit wants us to be. So we thank any of the board Trapp members that are here. Martha's here, and Martha and George and JG right behind me. He's multi. Oh, Deborah over there. So you can ask them anything. They have the answers.
They have all the answers. If you're here for the very first time, in a moment we're going to ask you to raise your hand. But right now we just want to tell you that there are many, many ways to become connected here at SLC. And if you fill out the card that the greeters will give you and either drop it in the offering basket or take it out to the welcome table, which is just right outside around the corner from the door, they have a very special gift for you.
Yes, and right now, if there's anyone here for the very first time, just kind of raise your hand and keep it up nice and high. We have that special gift that's coming to you right now. It is a chalet, and we invite you to wear that so you can get that special greeting and loving energy from our friends of Spiritual Life Center as well as our members. And on the chalet, there is a tag that reminds us who and what we really are and what we've come here to be. We believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and there are many paths to the one God. And we thank you for joining us on your path this morning. And we invite those here to greet each other, as well as our first-timers and newcomers, and just say, you look marvelous, you are marvelous, glad you are here.
So we have taken up the practice of speaking together some of the qualities that we determined as a community are some of our trigger points, some of our shadow places that keep us from living with nothing and no one against us. So we are going to speak those together, as well as all those affirmations of who we have come here to be. So let's do that together. Please have compassion for us when we are being not enough, distrusting, grieving, blaming, powerless, or fearful, because this is who we've come here to be, inspired, in integrity, joy-filled, compassionate, unstoppable, generous, and transformational. Now let's unfold all of those qualities of shadow and light into our vision statement. Spiritual Life Center is a loving, vibrant family that welcomes home all people and accepts everyone, no exceptions, weaving ancient spiritual traditions with emerging wisdom. We cultivate a spiritual deepening with the divine, each other, and our planet. I am as God created me.
I invite you now to take a breath Allow your shoulders to drop. Release tension. For your next 3 breaths, simply watch your body breathe. Notice how you relax with each exhalation. As you relax your thoughts, you drop into the center of your chest, bringing focus to your spiritual heart center as you continue to breathe. And allow yourself to drift into a light daydream. In your daydream, you find yourself on a beautiful, clean beach. You're standing near a small boat that is beached. And the sun glints off the boat as if inviting you. It seems like a perfect day to be out on the ocean. And so you easily push the boat into the water and climb in. The boat lightly rocks for a moment, and then the waves take hold, and they begin to smoothly roll you along. The motion of the boat is gentle, soothing. You relax. And turn your face to the sun, and you breathe in the salty air. Listen to the sound of the water shushing against the boat as it glides through the water. And tranquility settles over you. Float in this tranquility. Though the waves are gentle, the boat begins to gather speed, and soon a warm, light wind dances across your face and through your hair. You turn your face directly into the breeze, and as if laughing, it ruffles through your clothes. The air, easy and free, streams around you, gently cleansing your thoughts, your feelings, soothing and calming you. Float in this soothing calm. Up ahead, you see an island, lush and green, gleaming like an emerald in the middle of the ocean. As quickly as you have the thought, the boat turns in that direction and soon skims up onto the shore. As you climb out and set your bare feet on the sand and walk up onto the grassy knoll, except for the call of some seabirds, there really is no sound. And you sit down on the grass, put your hands down on either side of you, and now lie back and make full contact with the ground underneath you. You close your eyes, feel the power of your Mother Earth as she gently pulses and hums. This energy is very powerful, yet it fills you with serenity. Float in this serenity. When you open your imaginary eyes, you see that the sun has set and the sky is brilliant with stars. They twinkle and shine, and they are so close you feel like you can reach out and touch them. A full moon is rising. It throws light across the water. And slowly, like a mystical spotlight, the moonbeam extends up the knoll to you, and it encircles you with light. The light from the stars and the light from the moon reach into you and fill yourselves with unimaginable contentment, ease, and comfort. Any dis-ease or malady completely dissolves, and you are happy, you are healthy, you are free. Float in this freedom. Your journey is now complete, and it is time to come home. As you take a breath, you become more aware of your body and begin to return to this room. And as you do so, receive this blessing. Oh, my beloved, you are a child of the earth, and you are loved and nurtured by her elements: the water, the air, the ground, the fire. These are your allies. They cleanse, calm, and heal you. When you allow them to, they bring you the greatest gift of all: deep, deep peace. Remember this always.
Thank you, choir, for setting that prayerful tone. And And I'd like to take a moment now just to send some prayerful energy to those in New Zealand who experienced that tragic experience this last few days, a few days ago. And we connect with that presence, a presence that reflects who and what we really are, a presence that is love itself. And we send this loving energy and dynamic to those who have been left on this side of the veil, who lost loved ones and friends, members of their congregation and flock. We send that same energy to anyone who has experienced loss of anyone in their life. We look at all the places around that have happened in the last years or so and know that we can rise above that to express our better angels. We send that angel energy to even the individual who perpetrated these acts, knowing that there's something within him that is seeking to come out and express who and what he really is. And so through the grace of God, we align ourselves with this truth so we can reflect our true nature as children of the Most High and anchor heaven on earth. So it is, and so we let it be. Amen. I was thinking about the idea of grace. And for some reason, I remembered, I must have been about 17 years old, and I was just walking down the street, not doing anything in particular, just enjoying the day, enjoying the sunshine, probably during the summertime. And then suddenly, out of the blue, a car apparently had lost control. At least the driver lost control of the car. Come to find out later, it was a new driver, and he stepped on the gas instead of the brake. The car came up off of the curb, and it ran right in front of me into a wall. I mean, like this close. And, you know, when you're 17 years old, you figure you're immortal. You're not going to die. So, you know, I kind of got over it really quickly. But the guy jumped out of the car. He was very upset with himself, and he was so apologetic about what he had done. And I look back upon that experience now. I say, but for the grace of God, I would not be here today. So amazing grace for me. And I realize that grace is really the givingness of this presence we call God. It's really not something that we earn. It's something that we can be receptive to and receive. I think even in our darkest ignorance, which is another name for sin, sometimes I call sins self-inflicted nonsense. Sin is nothing more than we made a mistake. We just didn't know. We were ignorant. We missed the mark. And even then, because God has no issue with us, we can go beyond that because we can always begin again. So even our darkest ignorance, the Spirit of God is always being itself at every point in the universe. That's grace. It's changeless. It's always supporting us. Always. So it reminded me of the Irish blessing. Now, I said this earlier in the service, and Heather said I had the worst Irish accent. And I had to tell her that it was, this is Jamaican. It was an Irish Jamaican, you know. And the Irish blessing that says something to this effect. As you slide down the banisters of life, may the splinters never point in the wrong direction. And that's what grace is, because the splinters are always pointing in the right direction, so your life can slide smoothly along the way. And that's the truth. And that gives us some insight to that statement that ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. We have a tendency to think that when those words are spoken, that Truth means what it means in the Western world, that is somehow in alignment with what objective reality is, which is good. But also like the Eastern philosophy perspective on truth, it means something that is always the same. It's eternal. It's constant. The same yesterday, today, and forever. We can depend upon it being the same. When you know the truth, when you know God, you know that you can depend upon this presence. And when we can depend upon this presence, we're free and liberated from fear, because we know that God is not going to change up on us. And we have to surrender ourselves to it, give ourselves to it, because it is going to be there if we allow it to be. And because it's always the same, what we must do is place ourselves in tune with it and see what God is calling us to express and be in our life. And that's, like I said, it's always wonderful to be aware that we don't have to change God's mind about anything. All we have to do is change our own. And when we do that, life begins to open up in a way that we never imagined. As Ralph Waldo Emerson says, that we're here to get our bloated nothingness out of the way so the divine circus can flow. We block our own good. So we're here to have a keen understanding that we're here to transform. We're here to be different, we're here to change, become more and never less than our true self. You know, as the Apostle Paul noted in Romans 12:2, we're here to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. And of course, we're always looking for ways, means, and methods that will help us do that, because all the work begins with you and me. And so we've been talking about this month our spiritual toolkit. Primarily, we're looking at this idea of prayer because, as Charles Fillmore said, it's the most accelerated mind action that there exists. And we know that it changes us. And this is the transforming nature of what prayer is all about. And I mentioned a few weeks ago that, the master teacher said that we must pray believing that we may receive. And so we're deepening that idea in this conversation about prayer with the topic of recognize, unify, and realize. Now, there used to be a slang term that was said years ago by the young folks. And they used to say, you better recognize. It's gotten a little old now, so you can't really, can't really use it that much nowadays. They think that you're out of step. That's like saying it's groovy. Don't ever say that again. Don't let that go. But we're here to recognize. And so there's another Irish statement that says, may those that love us, love us. And those that don't love us, may God turn their hearts. And if God can't turn their hearts, may God turn their ankles. So we'll recognize them by their limping. The whole idea, we're here to recognize. And that's the first stage of what I call affirmative prayer. Recognize there's only one presence, one power, one love that is everywhere present. But you and I have to continuously recognize that and simply say to ourselves in some way, shape, or form that I am a divine and perfect spiritual prototype or idea in the mind and the heart of pure spirit. The idea of what I am in the mind of God has never been created and never will be created again. That, God does not mass produce. We're not like in a factory or a mass production line. God creates unique spiritual ideas, and each of us are an expression of those ideas. And of course, we have to recognize that that idea is tied up in this idea of the Christ in us, the hope of glory. And I always like to say that Christ is not a person, but simply that idea of the Spirit of God is within each and every one of us. And I mentioned earlier that, the mosque that was in New Zealand, I mislabeled it earlier, but it was in a city called Christ Church. I think that helps us recognize what our true identity is. It's like the guy who had gone to a bank and wanted to cash a check, and the cashier asked him, the teller asked him, well, can you identify yourself? And he took out a mirror and he looked at it and said, that's me, all right. That's me. That's me. Recognize. Perhaps we're pulling away from this 49th chapter of Isaiah, which I say that Jesus must have been his favorite prophet because he quotes him more than anybody else. But in this Hebrew Bible scripture, the Lord, or the great law of life, is saying that your name is branded in the palm of my hand. Your name is branded in the palm of God's hand, which means that every time, at least figuratively speaking, that this Godhead looks at the palm of its hand, if it could see your name. It could see you as a unique individual expression of itself, which means that you are important. And no matter what someone may have called you, you're significant. No matter what label you may have gotten from someone around you, your parents, your friends, your relatives, teachers, whatever name they may have called you, no matter how many letters they have behind their name, no matter what authority that they think they have, if they call you other than a child of God, if it's not emanation of God, it is the wrong label. Forget about it. Forget about it. We have to recognize who we truly are. And we've been to pray from that space. Because if we don't, we can pray, we can visualize, we can dream, we can affirm, we can put out our vision boards. Nothing can change because we can never go beyond how we see ourselves. I had a spiritual mentor many years ago who said that there's nothing more frustrated than a frustrated metaphysician. It's about an individual who knows all the laws, knows all the laws of the universe, has got all the books and the formulas, how it works and why it works, can recite them over and over again. They know that it's done unto them as they believe. Yet they're still alive. Their life does not carry the tenor and the timbre and the glow of the possibilities of themselves. Because even though they've studied it all, somewhere along the line, they do not feel embraced or accepted by themselves or accepted or embraced by this presence that we call God, which is the fundamental energy that holds the whole universe together. Somewhere along the line, they maybe have loved conditionally, or they were trained that in order to get love that you had to be a particular way or do a particular thing. And this carries over to the spiritual work and diminishes its power. But we have to recognize first and foremost that we are absolutely accepted, embraced by this presence. And then we find our way in that kind of acceptance, our life begins to glorify our truth through every word, every thought, and action that we take. I knew a friend who was a wonderful singer, and he also had a group that he used to bring to his singing camp every year from the inner cities. But before he would tell them any lessons or about singing or music, he would make sure that he would affirm every single child that walked into that room every single time they met. And he has to have a great ditty he used to sing, but I can't remember what it is. I have to call him up and ask him. But he used to say things, I know, like to each child, he would make something unique for them that would affirm them. He would say, I love having you in my class. I think that you're funny. You're going to be a great comedian. You're a great athlete. You're going to be great at soccer. Or we say someone who may have been down and out and didn't really have the affirmation in their life and say to that child, everyone here loves you. And he said that to each child as they stood in front of the class and they faced the teacher each and every day. It began to expand how they saw themselves and expanded the possibilities of what they could be in their life. When we had our Ash Wednesday service, we made reference to the book by Maya Angelou, where she talked about the time that she was with her instructor and mentor and teacher. And she had been going through some challenges in her own life and some abuse that she had had and probably did not feel good about herself. And the instructor knew about this, so he had her read a statement out of the book, Lessons in Truth. And it simply said, God loves me. And she had to read that over and over again. He would say, recite it, and she would kind of superficially say it, and he would say, read it again, read it again, read it again. And then something within her was touched. And everything with her kind of broke like a dam came, and she just began crying, and it began to open up the possibilities for her life. And she did magnificent things. I had the opportunity to have dinner with her years ago, and she's very majestic. And she don't play around either. She knows who she is at that time. And I remember we were at a great and wonderful restaurant, and she said nobody could hear order fish because she was allergic to fish. So we had to everybody else ordered, they got in line, and we ordered whatever she wanted. But I think the whole idea is that she began to affirm herself, and the world began to conform to who she was. She did not conform to the world. And I think in my own life, when we begin to love ourselves, we become who we are. And as I went through my own dark night of the soul, it was an important lesson for me to remember who I am, regardless of what I thought myself to be. I think when we come to acceptance, we understand this statement that God does not love me because of what I am because God loves me. I am because God loves me, and God is the love intelligence that governs the universe. So God does not love me because of what I do, because of my religion, what affirmations I use, what I create. God does not love me for any of that, because what I create comes from the love of this presence. So that first movement into our prayer work is setting our intention to understand that we are loved already. We're already being dealt by the Spirit, and we begin to create our visions and the things that we want. We're not coming from a place of lack or limitation or sense of being unworthy, because remember that we are perfect ideas in the mind and the heart of God, and we want to recognize this. So the first step into affirmative prayer is to recognize our true identity. And then number 2 is unify. We hear the statement that the Father, Mother God, and I are one. Jesus said those words. I paraphrased a little bit to bring it up to date. But he's speaking of unification and being one with this presence. There was a spiritual conference, and they wanted this conference to begin and end with the reading of the 23rd Psalm. And they asked a young, excited minister to kick off the conference, to read the 23rd Psalm. And he did so, and he was articulate, he was fluent. He knew it by heart, and he said, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." He went through the whole thing, finished it, and there was a light applause. People affirmed him pretty much. And the conference went on. And then at the end of the conference, they called an elder statesman to come up. And they closed it out by reading the 23rd Psalm once again. And he got up. He had been around for a long time, and he got up a little slow and creaky. He had to adjust his glasses so he could read the Bible. And he stumbled over a few words, and he began to say the psalm. And he said, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want." And he articulated that through the psalm. And as he read the psalm, everyone there could feel a hush going over the whole audience. People began to cry. People were healed in that moment. They were releasing the burdens of guilt and doubt and worry and fear. Transformation was going on throughout that room as he was reading that psalm. And after it was all over, the young minister went up to the elder statesman and said, "I don't quite understand. When I recited the psalm, I was fluent, I was articulate. I knew everything by heart. People liked it. I got a little light applause. But when you did it, there was not a dry eye in the house. What was the difference?" And the elder gentleman looked down at the young man and said, "You knew the psalm, but I know the shepherd." He was one with the presence. He embodied what it meant. And people could feel the vibration that was coming from him. He was not just reciting words. And so we're hearing, when you better unify, we're hearing that we want to know the presence. We want to know the presence. We want to know the shepherd. We want to know this great law of life. We want to know that the living Spirit of God, which is the first cause, the foundation of everything that exists, is our being, and we are one from it, with it. And when we begin to speak from that space, when we begin to pray from that space, begin to affirm from that space, begin to visualize from that space, then we know where we're coming from, and we know where we're headed. You know, there's a story about Oliver Wendell Holmes, who was a Supreme Court justice. He was riding on a train. And back in those days that they had a conductor would come by and gather up the tickets. And if you didn't have your ticket, you might get kicked off the train. Who knows? And so Justice Holmes couldn't find his ticket. He looked in his pockets. He looked through his bag, and he couldn't find the ticket. And the conductor knew who he was, so he said, Justice, don't worry about it. If you can't find the ticket, don't worry. You know, I know who you are. If you happen to find it, you can give it to me later. It's okay. But then the justice said to the conductor, you don't understand. I don't even know where I'm going. I need to find that ticket. I say that to say this, in order to really live the life that we want, to really be in tune with that elder statesman was about in his unification with the shepherd, we have to know where we're going. We have to know where we're coming from. Oftentimes we go into prayer work and individuals move into prayer and they feel themselves separate from God, trying to get a presence of God to help them with a problem, rather than come to the awareness that the Spirit has the answer even before we know the question. So we have to unify. We're becoming available to this presence, yielding to this presence, being one with this presence so that the grace takes us over. It's seeking to express itself through us. And when we have that express itself through us, then we know that something good is about to happen. We may not know exactly what it is, but we know it's going to be good. It's like a woman who was diagnosed and was told that she only had 3 months to live. She was okay with that. She had lived a great life and a full life. And so she went to her minister and she said, listen, if in fact I make my transition, it's okay. If I only have a few more months to go, it's no big deal, it's all right. But I do have a request that I want you to help follow on my behalf. He said, when I'm in the casket, I want to make sure that they have a fork in my hand. Well, the minister was, he was non-judgmental, but he looked at her kind of interestingly and said, okay, you want a fork in your hand when you're in the casket? She said, yeah. And explain to the people this, who come to my celebration service. Tell them that I love the church. And what I loved about the church probably more than anything were the potlucks. Because I knew at the end of the meal that if they brought out forks, that the dessert was going to be something special. It wasn't going to be some corny Jell-O or anything like that. It was going to be some hot apple pie, some peach cobbler, a cake. So if they ever brought the forks out, it was going to be some good dessert. So put a fork in my hand and let them know I'm expecting something good in this next dimension of my experience. So when you're unified with this presence, you figuratively walk around with a fork in your hand because you're aware that every living moment the Spirit is breaking into expression as you, and it's going to give you something good. So first, we want to recognize, and secondly, we want to unify. So number one is, number two is unify. No separation. And then finally, after you recognize and unify, you have to realize, have the fire of realization. Charles Fillmore wrote in his book, Christian Healing, and he noted that realization is simply that conviction that a person gets when they are so focused on an idea that they feel assured that it has already been fulfilled. They know it's already done. They don't need to keep affirming. You know, somebody told me that if you got the affirmation right and you touch that place, you say it one time and it's already done. You don't have to worry about it. You just walk away. Like I shared earlier that I'm an old football fan, and there used to be a football player, quarterback that played for the Baltimore Colts by the name of Johnny Unitas. And they were talking about a time that Johnny Unitas was in the game, and it was the last second of the game, and he threw the ball way down the field. And before the ball even reached the receiver's hand, he just turned and walked away. He didn't even look. And they asked him, well, why is it that you didn't follow through or see the ball received to the receiver? And he said, I wouldn't worry about it. That's what he gets paid to do. I did my part. I didn't need to stick around to see the result because I knew it was already going to be done. He was that good. It's already done. I had a friend that was telling me that they were listening to a spiritual talk, and she had a realization that much of her prayer work was trying to overcome God's reluctance. That she had made God in the image and likeness of her parents. And through the course of her life, she was trying to get love from her parents, trying to overcome her parents' reluctance to give her what she thought she needed. So she made God in that same image. Maybe somewhere along the line, we heard that God had made us in God's spiritual image and likeness, and we've been trying to return the favor by making God in the image and likeness of humanity, trying to give it human qualities. But we discover that there is no reluctant deity. There's no reluctant God. There's no God saying that if she gets the words just right, if she somehow earns her keep, if she says this affirmation 99 times, then I will unlock the mysteries of the universe and healings will take over. No. The fire of realization lets us know there's no reluctance in this all-giving God. That's God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, the ever-expanding good. We have to be in a position to receive it. The fullness of the Spirit is everywhere, being itself fully, every moment there is. And we're here to realize that, to have a spiritual realization of that, then let the spiritual chips fall where they may and watch our life be transformed from glory to greater glory. And heaven will be revealed. The expansion will be revealed. And I think the ceilings that we have placed upon ourselves will begin to remove themselves. We'll no longer be saying things, I could never do that. I'm too old for that. My time has passed. I don't have enough of this. I never had enough of that. Whatever excuse we have given to ourselves to restrict what God has for us, we let it go because we believe it is already done. That's realization. It's done. I feel it. I know it. I'm not trying to get it. I already have it. It is done. That's his nature. And so when we affirm in that way and have a fired up spiritual realization, that all the excuses that we have used up until that point that have blocked the Spirit begin to remove themselves and go to the place where it has come from, never to exist again. I think when we have these so-called blockages along the way, they're nothing more than stepping stones to bring us up higher. They can make us stronger, make us more vital, more vigorous. Hey, I'm telling you something here. There's something within you. There's a power within you. There's a presence. There's a love that has never been hurt, harmed, or endangered in any way. There's something about you that has never been daunted in any way. There's something about you that wants to sing its song, that wants to shine, wants to absolutely glow and be spiritually activated. I'm saying fire up that realization. There's a fire of spiritual realization. There is a fire that dissolves the doubt, that eradicates the fear, that moves us more optimistically forward in our life, but with a knowing that if God is for you, there can be nothing against you. Absolutely nothing can be against you, and that is the truth. So as we go through this process, we first recognize the truth. Then we begin to unify with the truth. And then we realize the truth, and it frees us, transforms us to be what we're here to be. Peace and blessings to you. Good. So we're going to build upon this next week when we talk about enlarge your tents. And that simply means to expand our possibilities in life. And with that awareness, let us prepare for our love offering and gifts and tithes. And get into that flow that reminds us that we're practicing a principle that says whatever we give out begins to come back to us in ways that we never imagined. It also supports this community to provide the resources for those who are on their way, who are looking for that something they don't even know about yet. They're looking for something to transform themselves, to be the best they're here to be, to help us become the best community and world that we can be. And we're doing our part to provide that opportunity. So with that consciousness, I invite you to join in and say your offertory blessing together, knowing that however you've given, even by online or EFTs, which we encourage, makes it easier for everybody. Let's say our offertory blessing together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God. Here comes the sun. You are that sun. You are that sunshine. You are the Christ presence, the Atman presence, the Buddhic field. You bring it to this world, and we transform not only ourselves, but the world in which we live. And with that, we bless the tithes and offerings, knowing they're going to bless the givers and receivers, this community, and beyond. And we say so in the name and the nature of the Spirit of the living God that dwells in each and every one of us. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen. Let us sing our peace song. And let's deepen